Hello everyone, welcome back to the Anatomy Lab. Today we're going to be taking a look at the femur. This is the upper leg bone or your thigh bone. This bone is one of your largest bones, and this is one of your strongest bones as well. And to identify the landmarks, keep in mind, like what we've been doing with most of the bones, make sure you can orient yourself to the anterior and posterior, the medial and the lateral, and the proximal and distal. But first of all, what types of landmarks can you use to help with identifying this as a femur? So one of the most prominent ones that I would often use is this big old ball head right over here. So if you can find this, you have very good reason to think that this is either probably the femur or the humerus. But the good distinction between the femur and the humerus is that you have this big ball end, but you also have this neck portion, this extension from the femur. So this is a femur for sure, and that is also going to give you a little bit of orientation. This is going to be the proximal side. This is going to be the distal side. But as we look at the proximal and distal sides, we can also look for additional landmarks. So the first one that we looked at here was the big head of the femur. That is the very, very round proximal portion that is going to be articulating with the hip bone or the coxal bone. Next, we have the neck of the femur, which is going to be extending from the majority of the bone outward to make its articulation. And then you also have this little divot in here at the very edge or the proximalmost edge of the head of the femur. This is the fovea capitis. But in addition to that, on the proximal end of the femur, you also have some other bony landmarks such as these ridges as well as processes that extend away from it. So up over here, this is where you're going to have this very large process. This is called the greater trochanter. But over here on the back of the femur, this is also going to be the lesser trochanter. So between these two, I already kind of gave it away, but this is the posterior side. If you can find the lesser trochanter, this is the posterior side. As well as if you can find the greater trochanter, this is proximal, but also lateral. So you have lateral and medial, you have proximal and distal, and now you have anterior and posterior because you can find the lesser trochanter. But one more landmark that you can see here between these trochanters is this right here, the Intertrochanteric Crest. So you can see that you have this kind of ridge here between the greater and the lesser trochanter. This is the Intertrochanteric Crest. Now moving to the diaphysis or the shaft of the bone, you can also see that it's quite long for one, but also it has at least one landmark that you will need to be able to find, this right here. So between the two sides, one of them is smooth, one of them has this long ridge going along it. This long ridge is going to be on the posterior side, and you can also identify that based off of the location relative to the the lesser trochanter. This is the linea aspera. So the linea aspera is this ridge that's going along the back. This is going to have muscles that insert onto it or originate from it, but this is going to be on the posterior side, this line along the back of the femur. Moving further distally though to the other end of the femur, so number one, you don't see the big ball end. This is definitely the distal end. But on the distal end, you can see that you have these kind of smooth regions. The smooth regions are going to be the condyles of the femur. So to help with orienting you to like each of the condyles, remember which side is medial and which side is lateral. If you can find the ball end, this is medial. If you can find the greater trochanter, this is lateral, meaning that these are your medial and lateral condyles respectively. So ball end, medial condyle. Greater trochanter, lateral condyle. But in addition to those condyles, a little bit proximally on the condyles these on the sides are your epicondyles. So you have a medial epicondyle as well as a lateral epicondyle. So make sure that you can orient yourself to the femur, make sure that you can find all of the given landmarks, and make sure that you're going along with your structure list. If I didn't cover everything, make sure that you look for those on the pictures online, either on the pictures provided for the practical review, But that's about it for today. Good luck with your studying, and I'll see you next time.